Hey, there we are, Brunch with Brian. And so today I'm going to talk more about organization. This is our Getting Organized week. Last week we had Landlord week. This week we're talking about getting organized. And so there's some definite things that we want to do. When we talked yesterday, we talked about filing. I mean, it sounds kind of boring, right? Filing, but you got to you have a lot of papers, in your life. There's a lot of papers and things that you accumulate over the years that is important information. Obviously, with real estate, there's a lot of training information. There's also very important paperwork with each deal that you do. So there's a lot of paperwork to keep up with in terms of that. And I'm actually on Teaching Tuesdays today, I'm going to go through exactly how I want your paperwork flow to work. All right. I've talked about this in the past, but not lately. And so this is a very important session to see, okay, where does everything start and where does everything end up? And I'm going to actually go through a whole organizational process. I'm going to go through the automation of the business really with you today on Teaching Tuesdays and the organization process. But basically, what do you do with a lead? Where does the lead go and where does it end up? Does it end up in a big pile on the corner of your desk with a bunch of other stuff that's not sorted? Or does it follow a progression? Does it have okay, well, let me go through it. All right, so let's go through the life of a lead, all right, and where it should be at any given time. Write this down, guys. A place for everything and everything in its place. My grandma was really good at organizing. She did a great job of keeping us organized, and she'd do a big spring cleaning, come over. There's 5 of us kids born in 6 years, so there was a lot of organizing. Morning, WL. Good to see ya. And Isabel, always great to see you, dear. So let's talk about the life of a lead. So now you can generate this lead from outbound calling. And we talk about there's several different ways of outbound calling: for sale by owners, landlords, listing realtors, and property managers. So there's many different, and I don't always talk about this one, but off-market sellers. So if you're finding hot leads through some kind of a list generating program or some other way, you're getting some other hot leads that are not listed properties, not on Zillow, not on Craig's, not listed, they're off-market properties, then we have a specific call for those. So you make this opening call, or it's an inbound call. You've done some work on social media. Don't forget, we have a whole system teaching you how to do your social media. Or it's depending on how you are coming into the business, how the lead's coming to you. Social media, it could be seeing a sign on the side of the road. It could be seeing a vehicle sign. It could be a referral. And I talk about referrals a lot. I love referrals because that's the hottest, warmest lead, right? Is a referral. All right. So now when a lead comes in, the first place it goes is into a seller slot. Okay, there's incoming seller leads and incoming buyer leads. Now, I'll get into this more. I'm going to give you just the skeletal outline of this because this is a little bit complicated to go over in like 2 minutes here. But the way I like you to do it, if you can do it the way I say, now you don't have to do it this way, but I have a file rack system where you get 2 file racks. And when you get into the business, any kind of real estate business where you have a lot of house deals going on, whether it's in the mortgage business, the realtor business as a real estate agent, or as an investor, you start having these files with property addresses on them. Okay, that's what you start to accumulate property address files. Now, some of them you're just in the process of buying, some of them you've already bought. And, so you got to go through that whole process. But it all starts off with collecting your incoming seller leads or your outbound calling seller leads to do closing calls. So you're collecting all your opening call scripts, however you got them, your opening lead sheets. Some of you guys use property info sheet, or all of our scripts work. All of those opening call scripts are basically your incoming lead sheet. Okay, now there's another script we use called the incoming seller opening call, and that's another lead sheet. Remember, our calls, the way we do our system, all the scripts are incorporated right into the form. That's the beautiful part of it. So when you're saying the script, when you're reading the script, you're filling out the form at the same time. So that's a great way to do it. Now, once you have an incoming lead, then you got to call them. And when does it become what we call file worthy? When does it, deserve its own file? When you get a deal meeting appointment. So up until then, all these leads, until they turn into, they're all scheduled for closing calls. They all need to be closing called or follow up closing calls. So this is where your seller leads that have not gone to the next stage are. Your pending leads, you might call them. So obviously you start your business more with sellers. Once you get houses, you're going to have buyers, and you're going to have a bunch of buyer leads calling in, and you're going to have to organize those. It's a lot more buyer calls than seller calls. A house is a buyer generating magnet. So you get a lot of those. Hey, Caleb, good morning. How you doing? So guys, now I want to talk about once this lead has been talked to and you have an appointment, you might have a lead sheet that has a paper clip on it with some other information. Like, I don't know, sometimes we'll print off a Zillow listing, or we'll print off something off the MLS or something like that. Or if somebody sent it to us as a referral sheet, it might have a couple of pages to it or something like that. So we might have a lead that's actually a paper clipped couple of pieces of paper, not just the lone lead sheet, but pretty much it's just the opening call script. It's usually those are all one page. So then once you call them, those you call during your closing time, your calling times. I want you to try to have like 3 or 4 calling times during the week that are pre-scheduled. Like, okay, I know every Thursday from 6 to 7, I'm making calls. Every Monday from 7 to 8, I'm making calls. Every Thursday from 12 noon to 1, I'm making calls. So at least 2 times, maybe 3 times during the week. But hopefully you're kind of calling these leads. If you're doing some kind of marketing and they're coming in, you're kind of calling them as they're coming in. So you can't always structure your calling times exactly according to your liking. I want you to follow up on leads quickly, so don't let days go by if a hot lead calls in before you call it. Even if you're not scheduled to call it right away. So figure out when you're going to be calling your leads. Then you sit down, you have your opening calls, you make your opening call scripts filled out, you make your closing calls, you get a deal meeting. Okay, once we get a deal meeting, then there's going to be some other things that I do want printed that are going to go into this folder. That's when it becomes file worthy. So once you have a deal meeting, you'd never go out to a deal meeting without a printed and I believe typed up purchase and sale agreement. So that's got to go in the file. A whole bunch of other stuff is going to go into that file. And then that file is going to go in your file rack. Okay. Now, eventually, once you go out there, sign the deal, that's going to stay in the file rack all the way until that house is sold, or that you put a lease purchase buyer into that property. So you're going to get familiar with that. And there's going to be a lot of stuff that goes into that file, including title reports and all kind of things. Now, if you don't stay organized along that process, if you don't keep your files clean and in the right spots, that's when you really get disorganized and you can get messed up. Now, if you're doing, I'd like you to be taught, how many sellers do I want you to talk to in a week? 10 if you can. I mean, that's a lot. That's a pretty, good, solid ask for you to talk to 10 sellers. But is it really? I mean, 10 sellers a week. I mean, there's 7 days in a week. That'd be, it's like 1.5 sellers per day. And so I know you can get on the phone and do that. So that's not really, that's if you have scheduled calling times, you're for sure going to do that. Now, even if you're doing all outbound calls and you're doing other cities and, really branching out, you should be able to find enough leads and calling listing realtors. Remember, that's one way to find a lot of properties that if you're all focused on the FSBO market, and you're not calling any realtors at all, that's where most of the properties that are on the market that are listed are with realtors. There's a lot more properties with realtors than are FSBOs. So there's a lot of, you can call a lot of realtors and you can use that listing realtor opening call. And remember, if you don't like their first property, or if they don't think that seller would be interested, then you ask them, well, do you know of any other properties? Okay, so we'll go through the whole lead flow today later, but I just want you to, that's sort of a basic background on how you handle your lead flow at the opening at the front end. So that's kind of your front end leads. Remember, all your incoming leads and all your filled out opening call scripts are basically in one file folder called that's it's you can call it anything you want, but it's pending closing calls. I mean, these are closing calls to be made. Okay, so these are because they're a collection of incoming and outbound calls, but those are your basically your opening calls. So opening calls are done in that form. You can put all your opening call forms in there. And then when you make the closing call, now what if it doesn't go to a deal? Now, if it goes to a deal meeting, then you're going to create a whole folder and you're going to write the address on there and you're going to print the Zillow listing and you're going to print some, the agreements, the authorization of release information, and like that's file worthy now because you have a deal meeting. What if they say no? So then it goes into a suspect file. Now you can follow up with your suspect files. If it's a really, really hard no, and you know that person's never going to bend, then it's going to go into a suspect file. Now you can decide whether or not, if you have some extra time, every couple months, 3 months, you might want to kind of go through the suspect file and look them up on, see if they're still listed or what the story is. And, time and circumstance definitely changes sellers' minds. So you can do a follow-up with your suspect file. Now, then you're going to also have what we call our follow-up file. And this is our doofus file. Call it our daily ultimate follow-up system. And that's just a file box or file drawer with a whole 31 file folders in there labeled 1 through 31. And obviously today is what, the 27th? So today, if you got a call today on the 27th, you were supposed to call them back on tomorrow, or you tried to call somebody and didn't get a hold of them, one of your opening call scripts, you called and they didn't pick up and you left a message. Where does that sheet go now? See, that's where it gets complicated. Where do these lead sheets go when they're in different processes? So if that lead sheet should go into a file folder labeled 28 in your daily ultimate follow-up system file. Sometimes people call this a teaser file, but this is a way that you can follow up, and nobody should be put further out than a month. So this is basically a monthly follow-up calling system. Now this is pretty rudimentary. This is working on paper. And yes, we work on paper still. So it's hard to get away from paper. Everybody wants to do paperless offices. Let me know, guys, if any of you have achieved that, a paperless office. Hey, great to see you, Nick. Where to get your social media marketing? Call our office, 888-RICH now. Guys, you can always send me an email at support@thewolfcouple.com, and we can help you with your social media. So that's a great question, Nick. All right. So also Caleb, yeah, I already said hi. Good morning. Daniel, good. Yeah, 10 plus sellers every day. Wow, that's good. I love it. That's a pretty good goal. Okay. And then, so then there is a CRM, and that's what Caleb's question is there is, I was just talking about a pretty rudimentary paper system, but also, and this is a challenge, I admit, is tracking and putting all your notes in on every lead on a CRM. So for a long time, we didn't really use a CRM. But then once you start using it, you realize how powerful it is and how much you can do with it. So if you have questions about our CRM, don't go buying one without talking to me or Lynette. We can help hook you up and get you a good deal on the same one we use. So we actually work with the people who market it. And so we would absolutely love to talk to you about that or social media or anything. So 888-RICH now. You guys know you can always call us. Somebody put that in there, 888-RICH now. And then you can always send me support@thewolfcouple.com. You can always send me an email. Wow, I went way longer than I thought. So, but this was all great information. Now come on Teaching Tuesday today, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. It's always the same time, and it's always on Tuesday. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of some life organization stuff, but also really getting heavily into the organization of your business, not just the paperwork. Now, we kind of touched on some of the paperwork processes, as I said, and but we'll get more into those and give you guys a lot of like really important information, practical information. Sometimes You hear real estate training, and it's, you know, it's a lot of theory or motivation, and that stuff's important. But sometimes you need just that nitty gritty. Well, how do I do this, and where do I put this piece of paper, and what pieces of paper do I even need to be worried about, and where do I put them all when I get them, and what overall organization of your business in terms of your time and even your space, you know, what you want to do with your space. So we got a lot to talk about today. This was really a good one. We had a lot of great information on this one. So thank you guys for being here. So I love being organized. I love being organized. I'm more powerful when I'm organized. So I love being organized. It's going to be our affirmation for today. We always say it 3 times on 3. Ready? I love being organized. 1, 2, 3. I love being organized. I love being organized. And yes, I love being organized. All right, so let's start deep breathing. Nice deep breath in. Big smile. Let it out. Relax your shoulders, your neck. Okay, another deep breath in. Always big smile. Put you in a good mood. One more. Hold it a little bit and let it go. Sometimes you can even take in more and more. So that's good. It expands your lung capacity. It's good for you and healthy for your whole body. So I will see you guys. I'm not on Wednesdays. Remember, I have another gig Wednesdays. And then Thursday, I'll be back Thursday morning. And I will love spending time with you then. But don't forget Teaching Tuesdays today. Teaching Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, repeated 3 hours later. So if you miss it the first time, you can check it out 3 hours later. And you know what? If you ever miss one and you really wanted to check that one out and you just couldn't make it, send us a text or send us an email or call us at 888-RICH-NOW, and we will send you a link where you can listen to the recording. Okay, so in fact, if you've missed some from the past, and we're in the process of actually categorizing these and putting them into like an archive too, which will be very helpful. All right, so awesome. And I will talk to you guys all soon on Thursday and also today, later on today on Teaching Tuesdays. Until I talk to you then, keep expecting success, getting the best training, and of course, as Lynette always reminds us,